Hello and welcome to Analysts Gone Wild. It's February 27th. Can you all believe it's 2 months has almost gone into the new year? I'm Robert Kramer from Moor Insights and Strategy. I'm joined by a great team of analysts here today. Let's kind of go around the horn, and then we got some great things to talk about as we always do. It's always fun. But let's start with Sam. Why don't you go first, and then we'll kind of go down throughout the group and jump into our first topic.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much, Robert, for kicking off. Sam Gupta here from Elevate IQ. We are the analyst and advisory firm. On that note, Kengon, do you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Kengon, pretty simple group covering infrastructure operations and CIO topics.
Great. Han?
And I'm Hyoun Park. I'm from Amalgam Insights, where we cover FinOps, IT management, and AI deployments.
Great. And John? Jan, I guess that's the best way to say your name. I guess, are you connected yet?
Jan.
Gian. Sorry about that. We got crossing regions here. Sometimes the pronunciation isn't always correct, but you can correct me and I'll get it right.
Can you hear us? Can you speak, Jan?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect.
Loud and clear. All good. Yeah.
Maybe introduce yourself and then we'll jump into the first topic. Okay, let's just jump into the first topic then.
Okay, Jan, if you can hear us, if you want to introduce, you can go ahead. We are waiting for your intro if you want.
All right. Sure. Introduce myself then. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Hi guys. Hi again, and thank you for having me. Burian here, the analyst and also the marketing guy from the technology environment. I look on everything related to the AI. The emerging tech, robotics, this type of stuff. So yeah,
thank you. Great. All right, Sam, let's jump into the first one here. This is actually a pretty interesting one, and I wanted to see what everybody's take is on this. Cubic AI is specializing in architectural planning and utilizing AI to actually do drawings for the clients. The one thing that I think is, I don't think it is replaceable as an actual architect himself, just because of the fact that that human component of design, I think, is a critical area. But this is actually a big step in a really interesting direction. But how far can you go with AI within this industry is a question I have. But what do you all think about this?
Okay, I'll jump in. Go ahead, Hyoun. Go ahead.
Yeah, I find this one interesting because it reminds me both of a couple of areas. One, the product lifecycle management area where companies like PTC have shined, and then PTC made a big splash. I want to say 5 to 10 years ago, really pushing into augmented and virtual reality, working with companies like Matterport and creating more interactive three-dimensional video and pictures and interactivity with products and architecture of specific products. And being able to dig into the same area from a generative AI perspective sounds interesting. I think there's going to be some interesting challenges there around the dimensionality and accuracy of what you're looking at from an architectural perspective, and that's a really interesting challenge that AI, the current generation of AI, is really good at conceptualizing things at kind of this theoretical level and providing quick answers, but not necessarily great at the details. We've all heard about hallucinations and how AI can lie to us, and you cannot lie at an architectural level or else things will not get built very accurately, right?
Don't you think the customization component of an architectural plan, that human, like you said, it needs to be spot on based upon the dimensions? What if it's a custom, piece of land? What if it's a custom drawing? What if you want certain areas, the hallways or the areas of a room that need to be specifically set, the window placement, etc. But who else has an opinion on this?
Yeah.
So
By the way, I mean, if you take a look what Cubic is actually doing, I think that to bring in that automation functionality or increasing that, it totally makes sense, right? Because most of their clients, they really appreciate the way how the Cubic solution help them to ease that the planning process and so on. So yeah, definitely. I mean, from this, what I see and already see now, I mean, it looks that was really this step really makes sense and help their customers, right, to benefit from that.
Ken, what do you think?
there's a couple things. First off is that I think this is indicative of a larger trend around taking point solutions that have certain capabilities and then bringing those across and packaging them in the way that's more consumable for a general population. So I think that looking at who this is actually targeted at in terms of driving benefit is going to be absolutely critical. So yes, the architect is certainly one of the roles that could benefit from it by making things easier for them to render and bring their expertise to it. So in that way, it's actually aiding the human. But to the extent that we can have a general person who wants to make an improvement or come up with a design, have a way to quickly prototype and be able to engage with a licensed professional, I think that this is a really strong play. And I'm seeing a lot of this in terms of other training and similar tooling that will allow people to check or test their ideas, because ultimately what they come up with may not actually pass their local zoning board, but at least it gives you a start on the conversation to be able to have a meaningful interaction about what the person wants and what's possible.
Yeah, it gives you a chance to play around with multiple types of designs before selecting one, but then the architect might need to be involved to make it, fit into the square peg.
Exactly.
So, Sam, what do you think?
Yeah, so I completely agree with most of the points that you guys have mentioned. Just one insight overall from the market perspective, and I'm going to touch on the point that Hyoun mentioned about PTC, which is a very interesting name drop there. And I don't know, Hyoun is probably going to have some insights there as well. Overall, from the market share perspective, in general, this could be perceived as more of the manufacturing CAD sort of play. But generally, the building and construction market is very different. The players that you have, from the CPQ perspective, from PLM perspective, the ERP vendors that you have in that market are very, very, very different, including e-commerce. They are also very different, just because the kind of bin that you have, which is going to be your building information model, is very different compared to a BOM, which is your bill of materials in the case of manufacturing. So here these guys are claiming, hey, bunch of AI, and you guys know about AI a lot more than I do, I guess. But overall, the claim that anybody is going to be an architect, that is never going to be true, I guess. And that is what you guys are suggesting as well, that you do require substantial subject matter expertise to be able to get there. So yeah, I'm excited, but it's slightly overstated, I guess.
I agree. Well, let's take it to the next slide, unless anybody has anything closing on this. I think, Sam, that was a really good point that you made. But anybody else before we move on? Okay, let's go. Great. Let's move to the next slide. But that was a really interesting one, because we usually don't cover, architectural, information, and I think that industry is really a fun one when you get into dealing with architects. But Vasco raised, 11.5 million. And I think this is an interesting one. Is this a Canadian company, Sam? I believe. Are you familiar with them?
It does say CAD, and it's coming from Beta Kit, so obviously it has to be a Canadian company. But no, I mean, this is the first time I'm coming across them.
So, we're getting into some of these startups that they're helping fund platforms specifically for AI. And we're seeing there's a lot of, influx of money coming in to help these companies with what their platforms from an AI perspective. But why don't we start with, and this has to deal with obviously customer success. And I think there's a lot to, with data, how do these customers use their data in AI to be more efficient? And I think that's the trend that we're seeing. But how do we see this being any different, or why does this make our headlines? Team, what do you think?
I think it's interesting just from a startup perspective. Everybody who's ever been in part of a small scale up or startup knows that there's a million different little SaaS solutions associated with the RevOps process. You can easily start from scratch and quickly buy 10, 15, 20, 30 marketing, sales, and customer service solutions to fit every single aspect of managing the funnel and figuring out your content strategy and figuring out how everything you're doing is aligned to revenue, but it's not all in one place. So I can theoretically see the need for something like this. I think that if you're an enterprise, you've already built out your marketing and customer service stack, but to get started, it is hard to figure out this one place to start, because you can work with a HubSpot or a Salesforce and maybe get half of what you're looking for, but it's never everything.
Right. And like you said, like how do you take on a company like this in your technology stack when you're probably already using something? How does it really fit in? And is this the most important component above and beyond ERP? Obviously it isn't. So like how much time and effort is needed on this angle? And I think that's just a good subject matter, because how do they get to stay afloat and compete against the ones that you just mentioned, like CRMs that Microsoft has if you have their ERP, Oracle, SAP, you're probably going to utilize either what they have or Salesforce. So how far do you go with the technology staff? What do you guys think?
I think to the extent that you're really targeting what the needs of the CFO and the CRO are, how easy you make it for them to get what they need to be able to target what RevOps is doing is absolutely essential.
Don't you think it confuses the people within the company by adding more in the technology stack? I mean, and I think Sam and I kind of have a difference of this, because Sam thinks that and I don't put words in your mouth, Sam, but you build the technology stack out as far as you need to build it. I think it needs to stay slim because of the fact that I think the data, you don't need data going in so many different places. But at the end, and I think this is one of those, do I really need it, and why is it so different? So I don't know, Vasco too well to even comment more than I have, but Sam or John, what do you think?
Yeah. So Jan, if you want to go first, you can go. Otherwise,
no, just go ahead, because okay. This is not definitely the area.
Perfect. So I'll add some points there. So I guess the key theme of the story is AI, and we are going to see a lot more AI-centric agents, and AI-centric capabilities across the board. And those are primarily going to be features. So one of the comments that you guys made is, how this is going to be different from Salesforce or HubSpot. So for the most part, I mean, Salesforce is all over the map about their AI capabilities. I don't know how many companies are practically using them right now and how commercialized they are, So that would be my question on Salesforce. The second, point that I want to make is HubSpot is still trying to figure this out. We reviewed this story, I guess, last week or last to last, that they are running a parallel sandbox. They are inviting users, and they are still trying to figure that out. So HubSpot does not have that. Now, the other point that I want to make is, even if you look at Salesforce, HubSpot, even though they are going to claim that they are complete CRM suite, but when you look at scenarios such as your customer success, they don't necessarily have that. Customer success, I guess, we are probably going to be in the boundary of kengon. When you talk about the real customer engagement, maybe a little bit of telco, Hyoun's territory, I guess. So that's where I guess the HubSpot Salesforce, they are going to rely on a lot of different technologies the point that you guys mentioned as well. So again, I guess overall, when I look at this story, I feel that there's too much going on, and I don't know how they are going to remove these blind spots. That might be a stretch. So I don't know if this is more of a data play. Is it more of the AI agent play? That would be my confusion. But overall, it's very exciting that these startups are working on the AI agent capabilities.
Good point. Any other comments on this?
No.
Okay. Well, let's continue. Sam, just a quick question. Do we have any questions in the chat yet? Or
we do have. So let's go over them quickly, if that's okay, Robert.
Yeah, let's take a look.
Okay, perfect. So we have Shashi in the room. Shashi, thank you so much for joining. Would love to see comments from your side. And in the audience, if you guys are there, we are a big fan of this three-way conversation. For us, what matters more is your opinion. So if you have any sort of stories, opinion, whatever, please bring them on, and we would love to discuss them. Okay, we have Leonard as well. So Leonard, welcome. Thank you. And he's saying it might save architects a lot of time instead of traditional software. So I guess this was the comment on the previous story.
Yep.
Right? You guys have any more comments on this?
No, I think that, Ken made a comment that it allows you to have multiple, options, up front and play around from that perspective. So I think that concurs with that comment.
Great, guys. If you don't have more, I'll keep going here. Okay, so here, Leonard is saying, I think they still have to use some additional tools to stay within building codes and laws, and that's another can of worm. There's just too much there. Honestly speaking, I mean, they would require substantial subject matter expertise. 90% of the startups that are slightly technical in nature, they just don't have that, to be completely honest. So it's going to be very challenging. Comments from you guys?
Well, and the key thing to remember here is that, especially when we're talking about architects are licensed, right? So you're not going to replace the knowledge and the licensing component of an architectural professional with something that's, a SaaS product. It's not going to happen.
Yes, and also licensing is happening on a geographical basis, country-specific basis. Every country has its own standards. I could see this being an interesting tool to support consistent standards within whatever geographies the solution is providing. Software has traditionally been a good way to help support standards at the mid-market level, because when you're a 100-person company, you do not have time to have also a chief architect, and sometimes even something like a chief counsel or whatever. All of these other business areas are things where you have to make compromises and need some help.
And you guys have a lot more background on this than me, I guess. But my understanding would be that they also vary per county and city and state and provinces, whatever you call, I guess. So that is, and I think the licensing is done per city. That's my understanding of these things. So it's far more complicated. More comments? No? Okay. Okay, next comment. So Leonard has one more. I think a better use case would be to add AI inside existing industry used CAD software. So just one comment, the whole BIM model and the CPQ that they are referring to, that could be perceived as more of the CAD software. It's a different CAD software, just because they don't call CAD, I guess, and maybe they call CAD. Sometimes they do. So I guess depending upon the industry, it could be different CAD software. Comments from you guys?
That's why it's really important to target the specific role that you're going after. So the way a professional architect would use it is likely different than the way a home user, somebody who's looking to do their own home improvement project. It's similar, but the needs are pretty stark in difference.
Yep, completely agree. More comments? No?
And maybe this is also used for the, let's say, like a larger complex project, right? Exactly as you just said, right? So like existing CAD tools, I'm not sure if it's just like a component of the entire platform or solution, right? So probably the AI component should be, I think this is also related to the automation, right? But sits above that actually, right? Not inside of and not inside of that's drawing tool.
Okay, completely agree. More comments? No? Okay, I'll keep going here. So the next comment that we have is, how well does Vesco integrate into CRM and other systems such as Salesforce or HubSpot, which are already integrating AI? My comment to this is going to be, if you look at their marketing pitch, they are probably going to claim that they integrate with pretty much everything. But the reality may be different.
That's a good point. So, and when people say integration, what does that mean? You know, I get it. I know what the words mean, but at the same time, you know, that that data has to be able to move, you know, efficiently. There has to be security. You know, there's always a security concern when these things move. I know that everybody says, you know, that it's taken care of, but who owns the security when it leaves the ERP and then goes to the CRM or the customer success software? Is it the customer? Is it the vendors? You know, each vendor, or does anybody claim that ownership? And I think that that's always a concern. So, I don't know. What do you all think?
Yeah, Robert. So, I mean, you know, the blame is always going to be on the customer. Come on, they are supposed to own all of this, okay?
I think that's not worked out yet. That's why I always say a smaller technology stack that controlled that a little bit better. Anyway.
Yeah, but overall, when you look at the integration, in my mind, even if you don't talk about security, obviously that's a much bigger conversation, because then you have to look at the overarching environment, architecture, etc. But when you look at the package solution, in my mind, integration is just a framework, a model.
Yeah.
Okay. Whether the model is going to work for your specific context is always a question, and that's where you need to align your data and processes. So just because if a vendor is claiming that they have integration doesn't mean much. More comments? No? Okay. Next comment. So we have Ellen. And Ellen, thank you so much for joining. The big challenge for AI tools is where it fits with processes and people skills. I mean, my comment on this is going to be, right now, every vendor is claiming it fits pretty much everywhere. So that's not the problem we have, I guess. But your comments, guys.
It certainly is true. I mean, because ultimately it comes down to when I work with clients, I'm talking with them about how you actually target the specific roles that you're looking to bring the power of AI to, so that you're helping them actually do their work better, smarter, more effective, more efficient. Those are the things, especially with an agent-based model, that a lot of companies are talking about today. But as we start looking deeper into the stack and where we might be able to use AI technology, this now starts to provide a lot more benefit that is not directly tied to roles, but now starts to look at processes and how you get system actors to actually work together to produce the results that you want your employees to be engaged in.
Yeah, I think, sure, that's indeed the truth, right? But I remember that, I mean, from like a RPA, right? When it's all started, robot process automation, right? So the people were taking their like the current processes and try to apply the tech on their old processes, right? So and then after a long time, many companies just like realize that they need to change the entire way of, let's say, processing things or organizing things. So and with AI, it's pretty much just similar, right? So the companies, they're just looking for the use cases, like for certain areas, but the future is definitely in, let's say, changing the entire environment, right? Like how the processes are going to be set up. I mean, what the people element, the what kind of role it should play, and so on. So yes, for now, it's about, let's say, understanding how AI could, let's say, help to strengthen the current processes, but in the future, I think it's gonna be totally different. And with the agents, that's way different. And we even don't know, I mean, what's gonna happen in, I don't know, like several months, right, in advance, right? It could be, everything could be like totally different. Like who would be thinking that DeepSeek would, let's say, destroy the hegemony of OpenAI like 2 months ago, right? So I'm always like very open. I'm talking to people. Let's just be flexible. Have a flexible architecture. Have a flexibly processes being set up and think about, let's say, the next thing.
Good points.
Great points. More comments? No?
I think the downside of the traditional approach is that, when you buy something like Salesforce, you buy something like, whatever one of the companies we've talked about so far, is that they have a product that's configured the way that it is, has a certain, it's almost like pouring concrete, right? It's not going to stay that way. It is going to change.
Good example.
As we start working on the lower layers of where we can apply AI, using that as a mechanism for being able to, instead of having like a hard-coded integration, how can we actually have that AI layer understand the data and the capabilities of each of those different technologies, so that as it starts to basically orchestrate the kinds of outcomes you're looking for, it's less manual intervention required and can be more, shall I say, agile in the face of change.
Yeah, so true. I run into that a lot. I'm definitely recommending right now trying to be as model agnostic or model flexible as possible, and focusing on the data sources that you're looking at from a retrieval augmented perspective, and then thinking towards the future about how you might be looking at agent orchestration. We're starting to think about how agents are going to work together with each other, as well as agents as skills, like the Workday agent of record announcement that was made that I'm sure you're going to get to at some point, Sam. But we're starting to look at agents as sets of skills as well as technologies. Or I'm not going to go so far as to say that agents are people or Soylent Green is people or whatever, but but agents definitely are sets of skills that we are going to have to integrate into our workplace in some way, shape, or form. And that, there's half technology, half person. It's like somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, so Kengon, I'll tell you from my experience that you are going to have much better life with concrete than any software, data, or platform out there.
Noted.
Okay, if we don't have any more comments, shall we go to the next story then? We don't. Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, perfect. So Robert, over to you.
Yeah, so data centers are a big deal. I mean, I think that how much power is going to be used, and I think this is a topic that talks about that it's going to be breaking barriers of what the power demand is needed. So let's take everybody's perspective on this. But one of the things that I've always talked about is, how do you handle the sustainability aspect of this, because of the fact that it was interesting, because I was at Zoho a couple of weeks ago and I asked the CEO the same question, and we talked about internally, how do you handle sustainability within the platform, and then how do you handle what's needed from these data centers. And I think it's a gigantic topic that's not solved, but maybe quantum computing helps out, maybe solar helps out. I think that they're not concrete yet. Not going back to the concrete component that you mentioned, but so, and nuclear, obviously.
A concrete show today.
Yeah, we got concrete going on. So anyway, what do we all think?
Well, I'm with you, Robert. I think that this exposes the kind of like the soft underbelly that we need to take care of, which is around the sustainability aspect. And part of it isn't just the mechanics of, well, where do you place it? How do you cool it? Because you've got the conditioning elements that go along with being able to house the equipment, but there's also the raw amount of compute that's required in order to make these AI capabilities available. And with everybody kind of throwing stuff into the environment, it becomes unsustainable at some point. The key thing that I'm worried about is like looking at demand, how we're going into and estimating the demand, so that you can start to look at where does it become now cost prohibitive to continue to build. There's got to be some balancing of the scales here at some point in order to be able to make sure that this is something that just doesn't flame out.
What happens when all the on-premise customers go to the cloud as well? I'm not saying that that's not taken into consideration here, but and I'm not sure that is going to influence this a lot, but there's a lot of companies that are not in the cloud yet 100% with their ERPs. And if they do go to the cloud, which that's the hope, that's going to make an effect here as well. But I think it's across the board. But what are the rest of you?
By the way, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the date of publishing, right? Of this, over this, the article was published, and it was like January 15, right? So when a lot of stuff has changed on it since then. So I would say a little bit provocative, right? But I mean, who cares, right? So you can just drill as you wish. You can build a new nuclear power capacities. I understand it's like it's a long run, right? But I mean, and I understand this is more like the article is probably focused more on the US, right, area, so region. So I mean, from this perspective, I would be just fine, right? Maybe also, but from the side, right? But the DeepSeek's breakthrough also showed up that you can, I mean, the AI could be provided on the, let's say, with the less energy. On the other hand, also known as there's that called of famous Jevons paradox, right? So the cheaper something is, the more it's being used, right? So that's actually the other things. But also I can see that especially for the US and for US economy, let's say the data center, it's actually the backbone of like of their power in the world of AI and all those like the data, right? As JD went so already shared many times at the different conferences, right? So I would say data center would be still in a focus of the government, and then they just like do everything just to really make them be up and running.
Yeah, I never thought that as an industry analyst I would be looking at modular nuclear energy. That was not on my radar. But the thing is, training AI and creating these new models requires a ton of energy, which is why Elon Musk has this gigantic power center over in Memphis, Tennessee, and every large hyperscaler is talking about their partnerships with nuclear power in some way, either having these modular nuclear power plants that create like many megawatts of power, or reusing 3 Mile Island. Who knew that was even a thing? And we're also seeing traditional power companies like PG&E coming into the picture, and also making deals around providing power for data centers. In Korea, they're talking about creating a multi-gigawatt power plant in the southwest of South Korea, where if you don't know anything about Korea, there's nothing there. It's a rural area. And basically, they're saying we're going to create the largest power plant in Korea just to look at AI research. And the weird thing about AI is that it takes a ton of power to make any progress on models. But once you make that progress, it becomes, you can often distill those models into something much smaller and easier, such as DeepSeek did. So there's this weird thing where you spend $1 billion to move forward, and then somebody can copy you for $10. As you might imagine, those economics are not great for the people building this stuff. So that's also an interesting challenge here in the AI world right now.
Yeah, so some very interesting comments there. So, I think one of the things that we all are agreeing is there are going to be real supply and demand challenges here in terms of forecasting that, because we don't know how models are going to evolve, how much capacity they are going to require. At this point of time, capacity is a real challenge. We can all agree to that. The one comment that I would make on the whole on-prem to cloud movement, in my mind, I think that is a minor variable in this equation. It's not going to drive as much data center capacity as the AI model construction, as Hyoun pointed out, that's probably going to be the major variable. But what we are going to do after that is going to be a question with all of this capacity. One final point that I would like to touch on, the permission. So obviously permission is a big issue. That's what they were trying to point out. But with the executive orders that we have, in place, I don't think we are going to have that problem. And US versus Europe, in general, in my mind, I think Europe, you are going to have a lot more regulations. You just don't have as many executive orders right now, at least, unless you select a president who's willing to do that. Then it would be a different story. But right now, I think it's still going to be very interesting in terms of how they deal with the capacity, but that's a real challenge right now.
Yeah. I think France is a wild card here because France obviously has established nuclear power, as well as with Mistral and the analytics and data background that they have. Even going back to the day, Business Objects was founded in France. So obviously France understands data. They've got power sources. If they can get around EU regulatory challenges, they could still be a player in this.
Yeah, great point. So, Robert, what do you want to?
I'll just go to the next one. I think we all covered it pretty well, and the next one's a pretty interesting one. IBM's been in the news a lot. They're with their enterprise data management strategy and their IBM consulting practice. The goal is how do we improve kind of going from that on-prem to cloud journey. How do we actually accelerate this? But this is kind of a theme with there are a couple of acquisitions, and there's one done actually that was announced yesterday. But at the same time, wanted to get you guys' take on it. But what I'm seeing is how do they help the customers with their AI journey? How do they help with their enterprise data journey? Because data is obviously the key to all of this. I actually had a discussion with a company, which was a supply chain company yesterday, and all they want to talk about is, which is correct, is how do you get the data right so we can make decisions, and how do these companies actually get set up to accelerate that journey? So I think this, with the acquisition of AST, I think this is part of that, and specifically for the Oracle practice to help them. But what do you guys all think? I kind of went on a tangent, but it's a very apropos for what we were all talking about today.
First of all, I'm just amused that Oracle Cloud matters. I just feel like we got so many years of Larry Ellison talking about, those cloud people, whatever. We're Oracle, we're gonna always be on-prem, the database, and so important. And of course, now Oracle has embraced the cloud, and frankly, Oracle Cloud has become a credible competitor to the big three in a variety of ways from a hyperscaler perspective. So both the apps and the hyperscaler, Oracle Cloud now matters enough that getting an Oracle Cloud consultancy is a strategic move if you want to support everything IT, as IBM does. Going back to their Blue Wolf acquisition once upon a time for Salesforce, IBM has definitely built out its software consultancy capabilities because, of course, that goes hand in hand with the hardcore IT hardware that IBM has.
Yeah, so some very interesting. I'll jump in if you guys so here, I guess, overall, the story is about the sort of the practice acquisition. That's what they are getting the capability, right? So one of the interesting layer, and I don't know, how much you guys have tracked the whole service acquisition market. Lately, the only stories that I have personally seen is 90% of the IT services firm, and I really wanted to have Chad here because he tracks, IT services market a lot more than I do, I guess. But overall, from the IT services market perspective, if you really look at, the majority of these stories were, hey, I'm getting ServiceNow practice. Maybe I'm getting Salesforce. Not as much, I would say, at least today. So this is very interesting because these guys are getting Oracle capabilities. And in general, in my personal experience, lately, Oracle ecosystem, especially from the ERP-centric perspective, has been relatively silent for whatever reason. I don't know why. Okay, consulting companies are not necessarily jumping onto Oracle. Hey, let's build Oracle practice. But this is a public sector. So this could be a different play. I think we have seen one acquisition, if I remember correctly, by Bain. I think they have Bain or somebody, one of those big four consulting firm. They had acquired, what is that? One of the software firm, which is the school mentor, some sort of school software. Can you believe, like in K-12 space? Because right now in 2025, 2024, government space and K-12 space is very hot. And that's why these guys are going after. So I think that's a play here, because most of the commercial sectors, they are not doing as well, from the consulting perspective. So they are all targeting government. But now, based on the government funding situation in the US, I don't know how well that is going to play. But this is going to be a very interesting, acquisition.
Although that's a really good point, Sam, that when you think about IBM and its role in the enterprise IT world, although there are things that I feel IBM is doing that are very cutting edge, there's also this area of IBM that is very focused on stable workloads. And as you say, Oracle hasn't been doing, a ton of stuff in the ERP world. I think Oracle customers in this specific area are pretty are stable in what they're trying to support. And that is a great fit for IBM, these gigantic workloads, but that have to remain mission critical and stable and standard. So that's a pretty good fit.
Don't you think it's about the numbers though, guys? Like, so, you have to look at how many on-premise Oracle customers there are and why they need IBM's help. Doesn't it come down to that? So like there's, I don't know, 5,000-10,000 customers that are still on, like JD Edwards or PeopleSoft or whatever they're on, and they need to migrate. Is that what they're aiming for here?
Yeah, so I'll jump in. So in my mind, I think this is more of the consolidation story as well. IBM is trying to get revenue, and these smaller firms are sort of struggling. So they are looking to sell, I guess. So yes, I mean, regardless of whether they were independent or with IBM, obviously they would do the same job. But now with IBM, I think the revenue is going to be much easier, I guess, at least from the IBM perspective. So it's more of the consolidation play as well, in my mind. I don't know if they are going after this particular space because this is the most lucrative, but at this point of time, it might be most stable, overall from the revenue attainment perspective.
I think one of the other things to think about is that from a services perspective, wanting to provide and look at adjacencies as a way of being able to bolster product offerings, especially the way that their customers might actually be talking to them about what they've got in the estate, providing a more well-rounded set of capabilities so that their existing bench can be used well. And let's not discount the fact that as you start doing work like this, a key benefit is being able to identify where new development efforts might actually yield some interesting fruit that hasn't been tapped yet by some other player.
Yeah.
Good point. Any other comments, gents?
Just one comment. I think the software that I was trying to mention was PowerSchool, I believe. PowerSchool. They were a major player in the school space. That was the one that got acquired. And since we have Leonard in the room, he tracks the IT services space. He comes from the IT services space. So I would love to hear his comments as well in terms of what he thinks of this story. And Robert, I don't know what you want to do now.
Let's go through a couple more comments. I think we got a few. And we go to one more story, and then we'll be ready to wrap up. But I think there's a couple from Leonard, and if you want to go through those.
Yeah, let's do the comments first because sometimes they could be related to the stories as well. So
let's do it.
Yeah. So Leonard is saying, I'm understanding that some of the newer models are being developed to use less energy. And I think, we all are agreeing with that.
Yep.
More comments? No? Okay.
Yeah, I think there's another one after that.
Okay, so we have a couple of them. Shashi is saying this is going to have a consumer backlash as there is a delta between the AI data center power needs and the power generation capacity increase. That's a very interesting comment, and I don't know where the consumer backlash is coming from. I don't know if you guys know more.
Well, pricing is one of the ways that you manage demand, right? So if you're going to favor the technology providers, you're going to decrease the rates for them so that they can actually use that power to deliver the capabilities. And if you want to decrease demand overall, you're going to have to increase consumer prices to, wow, I can't spend as much on power as I used to. So I need to unplug things from walls. And that's one of the areas where I can see people start to get a little bit irked.
Yes, you're also the hyperscalers are starting to make commitments for energy to be able to purchase it at up to 3, 4, or 5 times the standard rate. So if there are shortages in energy, the hyperscalers will get preferential access to the power grid. So that's not necessarily a problem most of the year, but we've seen the heating and air conditioning and cooling issues that have happened, say, in Texas. At certain times of the year, where and that can be a real that can be a public issue potentially. I don't think it's happened yet, but I could see it potentially happening.
Okay, if you guys don't have more comments on this one, I'll go to the next one. Okay, so Leonard is saying, I think that historically the US and Canada have had much lower power cost than Europe or other regions. By the way, in the US, the cost is going to increase because there are going to be tariffs on energy. So be prepared for that from Canada, I guess. So more comments, guys. Sorry. Any comments on this one? No? But yeah, he's right. Energy is much cheaper in the US as well as Canada. That's been one of the problems, I guess, overall from the manufacturing capacity perspective in the Europe region. And Jan, I don't know if you're going to have any comments.
Yeah, it's gonna stay for for some time like that, right? So yeah, there's also like a new government being elected in Germany, and there are some that there was some hope that there might be like changes in the energy politics and approach, right, in Europe, in the European Union, but it seems that it's going to stay as it is, right? So it means that for Europe, the level of competitiveness is getting, the bar is going down, So that's a big issue. Everybody's talking about it, but as the EU is, I'd say, kind of like a fragmented, and there's like also like a different interests now, right? So yeah, it's a real challenge which is impacting actually everything, including not just manufacturing but also the area of technology. Right?
Yeah, I would think that Norway would be the exception, of course, with its petro capabilities, but
yeah, but it depends, because even like in my country, right? So we have a nuclear power plant which is like generating quite like a cheap energy, cheap electric energy, but then it goes to the, let's say, it's being traded on the exchange, right, or something like that. So, and it's where the price gets accelerated, right? And then the same problem is in Scandinavia, right? So they have like a lot of these like green energy resources, but then if you go to the system and you send this electricity to the energy to the system, then the price tag is the same as everywhere else, right? So this is a real issue.
Okay, if you guys don't have more comments, we have some more comments here. So here, Anders is saying, one challenge that I see with people going from on-prem to cloud is that if all you do is put your server in a VM and stick it out there, you have kind of taken all the problems you already have and just moved from somewhere else. I'm going to have to agree with this comment.
So lift and shift has been a perpetual problem. Even from the days when we were just using hardware exclusively, it's always been an issue, and it's going to continue to be. I think that as we start looking at how we're taking advantage of the new development technologies and where the AI tools fit in with this, gives us the opportunity to start looking at how we refactor things so that we can start making better choices about what capabilities exist where, and be smarter about how to take and stitch all the stuff together and make those things work. But with legacy products, it's going to take a while to sort this out. We can't just go from the way things have been to the new world in one shot. And principal locality still applies because you have to drag data around. All of these things factor into making it really complicated and potentially costly to take and move things from one way of working to another.
By the way, I'm not a big expert on this topic, but the thing is that when I talk to the guys here, I mean, in my company, which is like IT service provider, they do a lot the application modernization or infrastructure modernization projects, right? And this is what they were telling, right? So like moving from on-prem to the cloud, it's not just like lift and shift. You need to really think about the modernization of the entire thing.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. I don't think it's just a matter of putting a VM in the, your server in a VM. I think it's about a new system. It's a new cloud ERP system. It's a SaaS model. It's like, when you go buy a car, you buy it or you lease it. If you get a lease, everything's included. So all your maintenance, all your, it could be your insurance. So the reason why these companies need to modernize is for the new software for AI, but also to have a cohesive, comprehensive platform, and just a lift and shift into a virtual environment is not that. So it's a major topic, Ken, like you just mentioned. It's not going to be done overnight, and this is why companies aren't doing it quickly, because it's such a dramatic thing to overcome with change management, data management, and then the culture of what you're trying to do. And does it fit your, as you were all mentioning, one size doesn't fit all. Does it fit what your company's vision is and the way that your company is growing? So I don't know, Sam, what do you think?
Yeah, no, great comments, guys. So if you don't have any other comments, I can move to the next one. Okay, so the last comment that we have is additionally going on-prem to cloud is good for certain regions, but other regions do not always have reliable cloud level internet available. So it would put those organizations at a disadvantage. So I'm going to have one comment on this. I think the internet is fairly available in most regions, even if you're going to go for very developing countries. Even in rural areas, the internet is very reliable, with the only exception being warehouses. Okay, there you are always going to have problems, as well as the retail locations. In general, I don't know why they cannot get the internet access as reliable. Those are the only places where you are going to have that. But for the most part, I guess, the internet is, in my personal experience, fairly reliable. They have really high-speed internet, sometimes much higher than what you are going to get in Canada or the US.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, it's the same experience here. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. More comments on this? No?
I've done a lot of work on large-scale migration projects, and the one thing that's consistent across all of them is it's not one size fits all.
Never, ever.
That's true. I think it all depends exactly on the region, like you guys were all saying, but who they're working with, what software vendor. I guess if it's one of the large ones, you're probably covered. But if it's not, then I think that there could be some open problems there and variables. But I would generally agree with you, Sam, that it's usually widely accessible.
Yeah. All right. So if we don't have anything else, Robert, what would you like to do? We have 3 minutes right now.
Yeah, let's close it out. Maybe everybody give their 2 cents on, maybe some advice to the listeners, and what you thought of this round table here today, and maybe some some advice that you might all have. Like I said.
Okay. So
Why don't we start? Yeah, let's start it off. Why don't you go, John? Jan. I'm saying your name wrong every time, but you have to correct me and just slap me around and say, do it right next time, but I will. But why don't you, besides the advice for me to get your name right, what do you tell everybody that's listening today?
Jan, closing advice, I guess, is what we are looking for.
Okay, right. This is to me, right? Okay.
Yeah.
And it's still Jan, so that's okay. So closing advice. I mean, yeah. I mean, as usual, we discussed, let's say, many topics from like different angles, right? So, and maybe it's also possible that during those, I don't know, like 58 minutes we spent on talking about these topics, that something very significant happened in the world somewhere, right? So it's like a hyper super duper dynamic. I mean, these days, right? So I would say stay focused, be flexible, and build resiliency, right? So and stay informed. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that with the stories we talked about today, one of the big themes that kind of stitched them together was around distribution and transmission. We saw that with talking about power in the AI world, or talking about how to support Oracle apps. So like the challenges are happening in this management and transmission and layer rather than perhaps at the endpoint. And I think that's going to continue to be a theme, that we're going to have to think more about how we manage things, how we get things from one place to another, rather than simply thinking about the raw power of AI, the raw size of IT, the things that are at the end point or at the start and at the finish are going to grow and are going to continue to be supported with billions of dollars. But as we see all that happen in our technology worlds, it's going to be the things in the middle, the layers of management, the transmission points that are going to start falling apart and need more support from those of us in the IT world.
Really nice. Ken, what do you think?
So given everything we've talked about today, I think that one of the areas I would encourage both vendors as well as end user organizations to start thinking about is how much time they are or are not investing in being able to start doing scenario planning. I think whether you're looking at it from opportunity or risk, it's an important part of the equation that we need to spend some time thinking about where things might go and considering what are the impacts if certain events play out. What if the cost of power spikes? What if power is not available? Those things are really important to do. And I rarely see people engage in those kind of planning activities that help identify what the next possible course of action could be.
Yeah, that's well said. Do you all think sustainability is a big topic? Because I feel like the vendors are all talking about it, but the action isn't going as quick as I thought it would be. I know that, we have SAP has a development, Oracle has a development, Microsoft has a development, but the customers are a little lukewarm. I think in Europe it's a little bit more accepted, but I kind of see the vendors, or like a Walmart mandating like they did, a long time ago with like EDI, that if you're not scope 1, scope 2, scope 3, we're not going to buy from you. And I think it's going to hit us like a Mack truck, that companies have to be ready for this, and they're not doing a lot either way. Now in Europe, it's probably going a little bit further, and there was I think there was some things that have developed over the last year, but in the United States, it's not as big of a practice.
Well, sustainability has a number of different dimensions to it, and it's not just about the things we typically associate with sustainability, but there's also, can we afford to operate the things that we're operating and still meet our objectives? Because there's a financial component that goes along with that increases the complexity.
Yeah.
So Robert, just a little time check. We are 2 minutes over right now, and some people may have meetings. So just want to make sure. So your closing advice, I guess, and then I'll close. Robert,
that was I think sustainability is a practice that needs to be considered highly by both vendors and manufacturers and all enterprises. So
perfect. And I'll say this. This was a concrete show, I guess. So concrete matters as much as AI scenario planning as well as IT. So don't forget that. On that note, thank you so much, guys, for joining in. This was an amazing show, and thank you so much, guys, for your time and insights today. I'll see you next week, 11 o'clock Thursday.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.